If you're someone who believes children deserve justice, who thinks the truth matters more than protecting lies, then you need to subscribe right now. Because if you won't stand up for missing children by hitting that subscribe button, then honestly, what will you stand up for? And if you're not going to subscribe, at least have the courage to tell us why in the comments. I appreciate the offer, Jennifer. Geddes had told her during a private message conversation that investigators would later recover. But the situation on the ground is very sensitive right now. The people I'm working with need to maintain operational security. Having additional volunteers who aren't part of the established network could compromise everything we've built. It was a reasonable-sounding explanation that effectively prevented Walsh from discovering that Geddes had never actually been to the search area himself. But Walsh's growing suspicions led her to do something that would ultimately help bring down the entire network. She began keeping detailed records of inconsistencies in Geddes' statements. Walsh started a private document where she tracked the claims Geddes made during his live streams, cross-referencing them with publicly available information about the case, and noting when his statements seemed to contradict each other or established facts. What she found was a pattern of deception that became impossible to ignore. Geddes had claimed to have spoken with specific RCMP officers who, when Walsh researched them, either didn't exist or weren't involved in the Sullivan case. He had described physical evidence that hadn't been mentioned in any official reports. He had provided detailed accounts of search activities that didn't align with the timelines and locations mentioned in news coverage. Most damning, Walsh noticed that Geddes seemed to know remarkably little about basic search and rescue procedures for someone who claimed to be coordinating volunteer efforts. When Walsh finally confronted Geddes about her concerns during a private phone call in late June, his response convinced her that her suspicions were justified. Instead of addressing her specific questions, Geddes became defensive and accusatory. He suggested that Walsh was being influenced by disinformation campaigns designed to undermine the search efforts. He hinted that her questions were putting the children in danger by compromising operational security. Most tellingly, he offered to add Walsh to his inner circle of trusted supporters if she would stop asking difficult questions and help him counter criticism from other community members. There are people who don't want Lily and Jack to be found, Geddes told Walsh during that call. People who benefit from keeping them lost. If you're not careful, you could end up helping them without realizing it. It was classic manipulation, turning legitimate questions into evidence of disloyalty while offering rewards for compliance. But Walsh had become too suspicious to be mollified by vague promises and conspiracy theories. Instead of accepting Geddes' explanations, Walsh made a decision that would prove crucial to the investigation. She contacted the RCMP directly to report her concerns. Walsh's call to investigators came at the perfect time. Detective Sergeant Lisa Morrison's team had been building their case against Geddes, but they had been missing some key pieces of evidence about how his network operated. Walsh's detailed documentation and insider knowledge of Geddes' operation provided exactly the information they needed. More importantly, Walsh agreed to cooperate with the investigation by continuing to maintain her relationship with Geddes while secretly recording their conversations and documenting his activities. What Walsh revealed about the inner workings of Geddes' network was both fascinating and disturbing. She confirmed that Geddes was indeed working with several other individuals who helped maintain his online presence and credibility. These collaborators operated fake social media accounts that posed as concerned citizens, family members of other missing persons, and even occasionally as law enforcement officials who couldn't speak publicly but wanted to validate Geddes' claims. The fake accounts were sophisticated and well-maintained, with extensive posting histories and social connections that made them appear to be real people. They would coordinate their activities to amplify Geddes' message while attacking anyone who questioned his methods or motives. Walsh had unknowingly been in communication with several of these fake accounts, believing she was talking to other genuine supporters of the search efforts. She provided investigators with detailed information about how the fake accounts operated and who appeared to be controlling them. But perhaps most importantly, Walsh revealed that she had been present during several private conversations where Geddes had made statements that contradicted his public claims about the case. During one particularly revealing conversation, Geddes had let his guard down enough to express frustration about the difficulty of maintaining his deception. The problem with this whole thing, he had told Walsh and several other trusted supporters during a private video call, is that everyone expects me to actually find them. They think I'm some kind of miracle worker who can just produce 2 missing kids on demand. The statement was recorded by Walsh and would later become key evidence that Geddes never believed his own claims about knowing the children's location. In another conversation, Geddes had discussed his financial situation in terms that made it clear he viewed the Sullivan case as a business opportunity rather than a humanitarian mission. "This whole thing has changed my life," he had said. "6 months ago, I was broke and unemployed. Now I'm making more money than I ever have, and I'm actually helping people at the same time. It's like I found my calling." When one of the other supporters had asked what would happen if the children were found, Geddes' response had been chilling in its callousness. "Honestly, part of me hopes they're never found," he had said. "Not because I want anything bad to happen to them, but because as long as they're missing, people need me. The minute they're found, or the minute everyone gives up hope, this whole thing goes away." The recorded conversations that Walsh provided to investigators painted a picture of someone who had not only exploited a family's tragedy for profit, but who was actively hoping that the children would never be found because their continued disappearance was essential to his business model. Armed with Walsh's evidence and cooperation, investigators were able to identify and track down the other members of Geddes' network. The technical specialist who had been managing the fake social media accounts turned out to be Marcus Chun, a 28-year-old programmer from Vancouver who specialized in social media manipulation for marketing companies. Chun had been hired by Geddes to create and maintain the network of fake accounts that boosted his credibility and attacked his critics. When investigators confronted Chun with evidence of his involvement, he initially claimed that he had believed he was working for a legitimate missing persons advocacy organization. But financial records showed that Chun had been aware of the fraudulent nature of the operation. His contracts with Geddes had included bonuses for successfully deceiving law enforcement and maintaining the illusion that Geddes had genuine support from real people. The financial coordinator, who had been helping Geddes manage his donation systems and minimize his tax liability, was revealed to be Sarah Martinez, a 41-year-old accountant from Toronto who had previously been disciplined by professional organizations for helping clients evade tax obligations. Martinez had created the complex web of accounts and shell companies that allowed Geddes to receive thousands of dollars in donations while maintaining the appearance of running a charitable operation. She had also helped him structure his income in ways that would minimize scrutiny from tax authorities and make it difficult for investigators to track his financial activities. But the third member of the network, the mysterious recipient of large monthly payments from Geddes, remained unidentified even as investigators prepared to make arrests. This individual appeared to be the mastermind behind the entire operation, providing strategic guidance and coordination services that had helped Geddes maintain his deception far longer than he could have managed alone. Financial records suggested that this person had been involved in similar operations before, possibly coordinating the exploitation of multiple tragic situations for profit. The payments to this individual were structured in ways that made them extremely difficult to trace, suggesting someone with sophisticated knowledge of financial systems and international money laundering techniques. The discovery that Geddes' network included such a sophisticated financial criminal raised disturbing questions about whether the Sullivan case was just one example of a broader pattern of tragedy exploitation that was operating across multiple cases and jurisdictions. But there was no time to investigate these broader questions. The evidence against Geddes and his known associates was overwhelming, and the public pressure for action was reaching a breaking point. The network that had helped Geddes maintain his deception was about to come crashing down. And with it, the hope that had sustained thousands of people who believed that Lily and Jack Sullivan were about to be reunited with their family. In the world of criminal investigations, the most damning evidence often comes from the suspect's own words. What investigators discovered buried in Darin Geddes' personal digital files would become the smoking gun that transformed their case from circumstantial evidence to an ironclad prosecution. The breakthrough came during the systematic analysis of electronic devices seized from Geddes' apartment. Digital forensics specialists had been working their way through thousands of files, looking for evidence that would support the charges being prepared against him. Most of what they found was what they expected: draft scripts for his live streams, financial records related to his fraudulent fundraising, and correspondence with his network of co-conspirators. But buried in a folder labeled Personal Audio Notes was a collection of voice recordings that Geddes had apparently made for himself over the course of several months. The files appeared to be a kind of audio diary, with Geddes recording his thoughts and plans in the privacy of his apartment. Digital forensics specialist Constable Maria Rodriguez almost missed the significance of the files initially. They were mixed in with dozens of other personal recordings, grocery lists, reminders about appointments, notes about content ideas for his streams. The audio diary entries looked like routine personal organization files that wouldn't be relevant to the criminal investigation. But when Rodriguez began listening to the recordings in chronological order, she quickly realized that she had stumbled upon something extraordinary. The earliest recordings, made just days after Lily and Jack's disappearance, showed Geddes in the process of developing his entire deception from the ground up. Okay, so here's what I'm thinking. Geddes' voice could be heard saying in a recording dated May 5th, just 3 days after the children vanished. Everyone's going crazy about these missing kids. The whole country is watching. If I play this right, I could position myself as the guy who's going to find them. The casual, calculating tone was chilling. This wasn't someone genuinely concerned about missing children. This was someone seeing an opportunity. I've been watching the news coverage, reading all the Facebook groups. People are desperate for hope. They want to believe someone out there knows something, someone who can bring these kids home. That someone could be me. In subsequent recordings, Geddes could be heard refining his strategy with the cold precision of a marketing campaign. The key is to give people just enough hope to keep them interested, but not so much that they expect immediate results, he said in a May 8th recording. I need to be the guy who's always just on the verge of a breakthrough. Always one step away from finding them. But it was a recording from May 15th that would become the centerpiece of the prosecution's case against him. I know exactly what happened that morning, Geddes' voice said clearly into his phone's microphone. I've studied every detail of this case. I know the timeline, I know the search areas, I know what the cops are thinking. And you know what? They're not out there. Those kids aren't lost in the woods waiting to be rescued. There was a pause in the recording, the sound of Geddes moving around his apartment. But here's the thing, I can't tell people that. Because the minute I tell people those kids are probably dead, this whole thing ends. The donations stop, the attention stops, everything stops. So I have to keep pretending I'm going to find them alive. The recording continued, with Geddes outlining his long-term strategy for maintaining the deception. The beautiful thing about a missing persons case is that you can string people along indefinitely. There's always another lead to follow, another area to search, another tip to investigate. As long as I keep giving people hope, they'll keep supporting me. But the most damning part of the recording was still to come. The truth is, I don't care if those kids are ever found. Dead or alive, it doesn't matter to me. What matters is that people think I'm the one who's going to find them. That's where the money is. That's where the fame is. Geddes went on to describe his followers with contempt that was breathtaking in its callousness. These people who donate to me, who hang on every word I say, they're so desperate to believe in something that they'll believe anything. They want to be part of the story, part of the rescue. I'm giving them that fantasy, and they're paying me for it. The recording from May 15th was just the beginning. Over the following weeks, Geddes had continued to document his thoughts and plans in audio form, creating an inadvertent record of one of the most cynical exploitations of public tragedy in recent memory. In a June 3rd recording, he discussed his strategy for handling skeptics and critics. When people start asking hard questions, you don't answer the questions. You attack the questioner. You make them the problem. You suggest they're working against the search efforts, that they don't want the kids to be found. It works every time. A June 18th recording showed Geddes celebrating a particularly successful fundraising day. Pulled in over $3,000 today after that live stream. All I had to do was hint that I was getting close to a breakthrough, and people opened their wallets. It's like printing money. But perhaps the most revealing recording was one from June 25th, where Geddes discussed what he would do when the case eventually ended.